gonna start this off with a magic trick. Here we have ordinary chopstick.
Magic.
Ordinary chopstick. Ordinary chapstick. I'm gonna make it
Ordinary chapstick.
disappear, and then I'm going to enlarge it by 5. Ready?
You can do magic.
Oh my god! There it went. Ready?
Where'd it go? How'd you get it back? Whoa,
Ta-da.
It's bigger now.
It's now 5 times bigger.
It's as big as my dick.
It's as big
as my dick.
It's pretty small. This is like
Who
2.5
said that?
inches. This is like 3 inches.
That's
man.
average size.
I'll prove it's a chapstick. Chapstick. Hey guys, welcome to Telly Talk. We're going to talk about what's on the telly. This week we're talking about Cape Fear, the 1991 version, directed by Martin Scorsese. The intro is on camera, because why not?
Just for vibes.
We're feeling
Why not?
a little
We're
silly,
wearing cool
funny,
sunglasses.
goofy.
I'm Knuckles, and my dick is in my pants, and you're Soul, and you don't have a dick.
We're talking about Cape Fear, the 1991 version, not the 1960s version.
The second one, the
is
remake.
Worse. Don't watch the movie if you're afraid of raping, or just scary men in general, or sexual abuse and manipulation, or stalking. Just don't watch. Don't watch
Grooming.
this. Don't watch this.
Just don't watch
this
this.
video
Just leave.
better have
Bye.
0 views.
It's
It better
okay.
have
Go watch a
0
different video
views.
instead.
Go watch episode 12.
If this
that one's
video
way
doesn't
more
have
entertaining.
0 views, I will understand. Wait, what? If this video has 0 views, I will understand. If it doesn't have 0 views, I will be angry, because why are you watching this horrible movie?
I mean, you're watching it for us, obviously, because you just love us so much.
There's a guy, and he goes to jail because he brutally beats up a 16-year-old girl.
You can't say that word. Grape.
And
he gives her grapes.
And then he's in jail for 14 years. This guy's name is Max Cady. Anyway, he had a lawyer who defended him in his case. And
Not really.
his lawyer found out that the girl that he assaulted was being kind of like slutty. She was, what word did they use in the movie?
Promiscuous.
She was being kind of promiscuous, and because the courts hate women who get assaulted by men, this would have freed this guy. Like, either gave him a much reduced sentence, or he wouldn't have been sentenced to jail at all, despite the fact that a 16-year-old being promiscuous does not excuse a grown man brutally assaulting her.
Wasn't
So,
she 14?
But you know,
whatever. It doesn't matter.
because we live in a society, the fact that this teenage girl was being promiscuous
Because
would
we live
have
in a society.
would have made Max Cady not go to jail if this was presented information in court by his defense lawyer. Now, Max Cady could not read, and the defense lawyer, Sam, had to convey everything to him. And Sam was disgusted with Max Cady. He also bragged about assaulting 2 other girls, in addition to the one he was on trial for. And it was like, it was very obvious he did it, and it was like a horrible, horrible thing to do. So even though, as a defense lawyer, he usually is very much like, I want to protect the people I'm defending and give them the best defense possible, this was a case where he was very much like, this guy deserves to be in jail, he's a very bad person, and he wouldn't go to jail if this information was presented. So he chose to not follow his role as a defense lawyer and did not present the information about the teenage girl being promiscuous that would have got Katie, like,
And he did the right
not
thing.
sent to jail. I agree. The movie kind of presents it as he did the wrong thing. Like,
Yeah.
everyone is like, man, you should feel so guilty for being a bad lawyer. It's your duty to do that. It's like, shit, man. Just because the girl was promiscuous doesn't mean this guy shouldn't go to jail. Come on. I was kind of upset about the movie's presentation of it. We can talk about that later, though. But I didn't like the way the movie handled it. But anyway, it's been 14 years, and so Sam and his family have moved to a different city in a different state, and this is, I think, because him and his wife went to couples therapy, and because Sam was having an affair, and there was just, like, a lot going on, and they were like, we need to fresh start, was my interpretation of it. Does that sound right?
Yeah. Their therapist was
Cool.
like, you guys need to, like, not bring up the past and get a new start, so why not move somewhere? And they did that. And they put all their frustration behind them, which isn't necessarily healthy, but they moved.
The story was, like, it was told through, like, dialogue as if the characters already knew what had happened, which is true, but we as the audience didn't really know what happened, so it was kind of like you had to pick up the pieces as they were talking, which was a cool storytelling technique, but a little confusing. Yes? Hi, you can talk.
Me?
Yes,
Me?
go. Yes,
Cape
you.
Fear is an actual real place. I think it's in North Carolina.
Really?
Yeah.
Can we go
I'm
there?
pretty sure it's in... No.
This family's in a new place. There's Sam and his wife, and they have a 15-year-old daughter, and
16.
this is important because Max Cady assaulted other teenagers in the past. Anyway, he's out of jail now, and when he was in jail, he learned how to read, and he learned law, and he is like
read
a
the
very...
Bible.
So I want to talk about that later too, but he was already a very, like, ruthless person, and on top of it, now he's educated. So this makes him very dangerous. And he figured out that
He was
Sam
giving
gave
Ted
him...
Bundy.
Yeah. He figured out that Sam gave him not the defense he was supposed to as his lawyer, resulting in him going to jail for 14 years, which is not a long time for what he did, not gonna lie. But he is very upset about this, so he figures out where Sam is and starts stalking him and his family. And there's also this side plot where Sam is having, like, a little flirtation that hasn't resulted in anything physical yet, but it was definitely, like, a bit of emotional cheating with this young woman who is a clerk at his law place that his wife doesn't know about. And he's already cheated on his wife in the past. Max Cady starts stalking this man and his family, and he does it in a way so that he has a lot of deniability. Like, he just kind of, like, stands just outside their property, so it's like, oh, I'm not trespassing. And he killed their dog in a way so that they couldn't prove he killed their dog. And he just kind of follows them around, but it's like, hey, we're in public, I'm allowed. I think he did.
Like, obviously he did, but they never
They can't prove it. And they never explain it. They never explain how he did it.
The dog was poisoned. It could have been, like, pesticides, or, like, the family could have accidentally poisoned it. But it was, like 99% Max Cady.
Yeah, he very likely killed their dog. And he starts, like, being around them in public. Yeah, I feel like that implies it was 100% him.
Yeah.
And just, like, he's like, oh, here's your collar. Oh, no, your dog just died? That's so sad. But it's like, dude, you killed their dog. And he's just kind of, like, taunting them, but in, like, a way where he has deniability, and he's not
like, you have
breaking a law. Which is also a cool way... Okay, go.
I loved when the girl, Danny, she was like, yeah, you were the one who killed my mom's dog? And he was like, you have a dog? And she was like, I used to. And then he was like, what kind of dog? And she was like, well, I don't know.
A fluffy one.
A fluffy one.
This girl is so upset at her parents. Instead of, like, believing what they say about this man, as soon as this man who was just a little bit nice to her was like, I didn't kill your dog, she was like, oh, okay, I believe you. Okay, Sam starts, like, losing his mind.
Let me fast forward this plot. Okay, so Max Cady, Robert De Niro's character, stalks their family over and over and over, until to the point where it's kind of driving them crazy. They hire a private investigator to try and kill Max Cady. A spoiler, Max Cady kills the private investigator by getting in their house. They run away to their houseboat. Surprise, surprise, Max Cady follows them there in a very surprising way. By
that blew my mind. I was not expecting it.
Oh my god, I remember watching that in the theater and seeing him pop out under the car. The entire theater was like, no, you gotta be kidding me. How did he even get there? It was so funny. I watched this.
When did you see this in a theater?
In March. I watched this for...
Where?
My film class.
Like in class? Okay.
Yes. But my school has its own theater. It's like a whole Dolby sound system. So it's like an actual like IMAX theater. And it's so much better on a big screen. Seeing it just on a TV, it's so much more fast-paced than it was like watching it in a theater. Like when I was in the theater, it felt like 2.5 hours, but on a TV, it felt like 45 minutes.
It was the opposite for me. I had to take multiple breaks while watching it because it felt like it dragged on so long, and I got bored, and I had to stop and like go do something else and come back to it.
Like I remember scenes being so much longer, and it was just like snap,
It felt very
snap.
long
I was
for
like,
me.
whoa.
That was one of my notes, was that it was too long and drawn
It
out.
was so short for me.
Yeah. No. That was one of my complaints about the movie.
Maybe being like
right,
sensory. Maybe being sensory deprivated in a theater with just like the screen made it so long for me, but being in a busy environment made it super short for me.
It was like the whole movie is like building suspense and building suspense and building suspense, but it never like cuts until the climax, which does make the climax very, very good. The climax was like the best part of the movie. It was incredible. And the suspense building was fun. And I generally like movies that build suspense, but it just kept going and going, and I was like, I can't take this. When is it gonna cut? I need to go do something and come back to it. Which was the point. I know that was the point, but it was too long for me, personally. Right. So the fact that Sam was like losing his mind and started doing like ridiculous and illegal and violent things to stop Max Cady, and Max was still like able to twist it so that like he was in the right, I think kind of highlights very well how our legal system like can't really do anything about stalking. Like if like someone's stalking you and you go to the police, they're kind of like, damn, we can't do anything, and then you get killed, and that just happens all the time. And this movie kind of showed that very well, I think. That like you're seeing that like what Max is doing is bad, and he's hurting this family, but you can't prove it to a police station. So they're just like, well, that sucks. I guess he's gonna murder you. We can't do anything.
There was that scene where they brought him into the police station, and Sam was talking to like the police captain, and he was like describing what Max Cady had done, or what they thought he had done, because they didn't see him do it and they couldn't prove it. They're like, he definitely killed their dog, but they couldn't prove that he did, and he had to break and enter to kill the dog, and they didn't have any proof that he ever went on their property. And the captain was like, so he was doing breaking and entering, and they're like, no, but like we don't know, like he had to, but like we can't prove it. And then he was like, well, he also was like, he showed up at our house with the fireworks, and he was like, okay, so he was trespassing. And he's like, no, he was sitting on the wall that divided our property, and he was like, so not trespassing, so I can't do anything for you. I'm sorry. And then that's why he hires the private investigator, because the private investigator can do like a little more illegal things to get rid of him. Yeah.
And the family managed to survive, but like barely, and it's like this guy was going to like assault and kill this whole family and killed other people. And that just, like, happens in real life, where, like, someone's stalking you, and you're like, hey, police, and they're like, well, they're not doing anything illegal. They're allowed to follow you as long as it's in public. So, damn, that sucks. I can't do anything, and then you get murdered. And this movie did a very good job at showing that, and I liked that about it.
I was surprised that all of them survived. I thought Sam was gonna die, like, with Max Cady the first time I watched it. I was surprised that all of them survived.
Me too. And then, you know how, like, the whole family moved somewhere else for a fresh start, which was, like, not healthy, but they were like, yeah, we're just gonna put the past behind us and not deal with it, and that's why their family dynamic was so toxic.
Yeah.
I like how, instead of, like, growing throughout the movie, they didn't really have any character development at the end of the movie. They were like, and we never talked about this traumatic event again. We just pretended it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Damn.
I
Okay.
feel like before Max Cady got out, they were doing okay, but they needed something to just, like, push them to fall into that, like, toxic area again. And Max Cady was the person who did that. He, like, kind of made them go a little crazy, which sparked their, like, toxic problems to come out again, which they've, like, pushed behind them. And he kind of made it unintentionally, but also probably intentionally, made them, like, crumble from the inside, which didn't help them with their Max Cady problem.
Like, their problems were already there before Max Cady got out. Like, the dad was already starting to have an affair with a younger woman, and the daughter was already having problems with her parents before Max Cady even got out. And
yeah.
then when he got out, it just kind of escalated it much more quickly than it would have normally escalated. But it just, like, capitalized on their already existing toxicity. And it was very cool.
Yes.
As a plot.
In the beginning, every time they would, like, show Max Cady, there would be a storm lingering behind him. Like, as he's leaving jail, a storm was behind him. As, he, like, stalked him in, like, a car for the first time, a storm was lingering behind him. And it was all leading up to the big storm in the end of the movie, which was really, really cool.
I did not notice that, but that's really cool. That wasn't something I picked up on. I have a question.
Yeah.
So, they left the family. The family left the airport with the dad and got... Like, they left the airport before Max Cady left the airport. That's something that we know. And they went home, assuming they went straight home, and then, like, booby-trapped the house.
Yeah.
And Max Cady left the airport after them. How was he already in the house? How did he get into the house? They never explain it.
He wasn't in the house.
Yes, he was. He murdered the private investigator and the maid.
No, but he got in, like, the other way.
They never explain how he got in.
See, that's the thing. That's what I was gonna bring up. We never know how Max Cady gets all his information about the family, because he knew about the private investigator without, like, ever meeting him or anything. Like, he just knew, and he paid for his meal, and then the private investigator
I think he
was
noticed
like,
him
fuck.
following him.
I don't...
Like, he was following him around all day.
No, but I feel like he knew before. Like, he just knew
then I don't know.
everything about this family. Like, their entire schedule. He knew, like, his kid's phone number.
Yeah, I was wondering how he got the phone number, too.
He just knew everything, and we don't know how he gets this information. He also only allows, like, whenever someone spots him, it's only when he allows them to see him. It's like, they never catch him off guard.
Mm-hmm.
And you never see him when he doesn't want you to see him. So...
It's very creepy.
He could have gotten in the house through, like, the back door. Like, the private investigator had all the strings attached to the windows. it was like none on the door, and the maid lady, she could have gone out like one of the doors to like throw the trash out or something, and then he like followed her in. Like, he's so smart.
The maid, him putting on the maid's clothes, like, blew my mind when that reveal happened, because I didn't think anything of it. I was like, the suspense was building, and then it settled for a single second, and it's like, okay, he's drinking, they're gonna talk. And then it was like, stab! I was like, what? It freaked me out. I did not see it coming.
You should have watched this with an audience, because, like, watching it with an audience, you see everyone else's reaction and shock to all these, like, jump scare moments. Like, when he turned around, there was, like, all, like 25 of us were like, oh my god, he's in the house! And it was so funny, and it was so cool just to see everyone else's reactions in real time as they're saying it for the first time as well.
Like, thrillers, and I love, like, the cat and mouse and, like, suspenseful dynamic, and the payoff in the climax was so worth it. But it was, like, dragging on for me, personally.
Like, this was the first movie that, like, literally, like, went up, like, a full incline slope. Like, it was never, like, oh, up and then, like, flat line and then up and then it was like the entire time you're like, when is he gonna come in, when is he gonna attack them, what is he, oh my god, he followed them, oh my god, he's confiding.
Like most movies, it's like introduction, building, oh no, the character has a low point, okay, the climax, and they win the day and it settles. But this was just like, it's over. Like, there was no, like, even like a resolution. It was just like, it's ended. It's over.
He's like, oh my god, he killed the dog. Maybe. Oh my god, he attacked his affair colleague. Oh my god, he's gonna get them. He's gonna get them. He's not gonna go on their property. He's in the house. He's in the house. He followed them to the houseboat, and then they attack each other, and then he dies. And then you're just like, what the
following them to the houseboat was not how I expected it, and it blew my mind. And
it was so funny.
It was so cool. The climax was just
under the car.
Incredible. The delivery of the, like, the mock trial where he, like, is, like, pretending to have Sam on trial. That was, like, an incredible performance. And the filming and the shots was incredible. Yes,
fuck. Actually, I want to mention this first. When they found the private investigator on the floor dead, when they all slipped in the fucking blood pool, that was really funny.
Yeah, that was funny.
They, like, walked in and he was like, oh, fuck, and he, like, grabbed the piano wire, and then he, like, slipped and fell, and then the wife was like, oh my god, Sam, oh my god, and he, like, tried to help her, and then she fell. That was fucking hilarious. That was hilarious.
Really funny.
But
really funny.
I just want to say that...
Okay, a different weird part.
Wait!
A different funny, kind of weird... Okay, go. Okay.
Robert De Niro deserves an Oscar for the entire, like, houseboat storm part. Like, the entire ending. Yeah. He deserves a fucking Oscar for that. That man...
His performance was incredible.
Fucking performance. That was crazy. Ugh. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, when you were talking about that funny part, it reminded me of just, like, adding to the tension. Everyone in the movie had this weird sexual tension with each other, which added to the general suspense also. Like, the whole movie's vibe is, like, there's tension. When's it gonna cut? When is Max gonna attack them? But then there's this, like, extra layer of, like, constant sexual tension. You know what I'm saying? And...
Yeah.
Like... And the part where the wife is just talking about really, like, fucked up sexual things, and Sam is like, okay, now I want to fuck you. It was so weird. Do you know what part I'm talking about?
I don't... Where were they? Maybe...
It was in the beginning in the bathroom, like, right after he's done flirting with his clerk, and she's, like, undressing, and she's like, pedophilia, and necrophilia, and bestiality, and he's like, we're having sex.
No. I think he did that. I think he did that because she was like, she had a robe on, and then she, like, dropped it off her shoulder, and then she, like, dropped her, like,
That was
nightgown
my
off her shoulder.
interpretation too, but then I read some professional reviews of this movie, and they brought up that scene and talked about how it was, like, what she was saying too added to the tension. And
Really?
I
That's
also thought it
weird.
was because of the robe thing, but professional movie people have said otherwise in some reviews I've read.
Well,
But that wasn't what I was gonna say.
we're students, so we're
What?
corrector.
We are so correct. The mock trial scene, it was a great performance, but I feel like the scene kind of implied that because Sam didn't follow, like, the law in his defense, that made him morally guilty, and I disagree that legal guilt... It was a fun, like, comparison, because it's like the whole time, the whole theme is guilt, and Sam feels really guilty, and then it's like, oh, a trial, you're guilty, like the two types of guilt, like the legal sense and the moral sense, but they implied that him being legally guilty was the same as him being morally guilty, and that's a very... Okay, not to go into my major at all, but in child development, we learned about the stages of morality that children go through, and thinking that legal morality is the same as, like, personal morality is something you do when you're, like, 11 and 12 years old, and some adults don't grow out of that. That's stage 4, and some adults are in stage 4 forever, but most people move on to stage 5, and then a small amount of people move on to stage 6, and the implication in the movie was very 12-year-old, and I didn't appreciate it.
I mean, he was uneducated.
What?
So that's probably... Max Kitty was uneducated, so that's probably why he lingered on that portion.
Probably.
Level 4.
Like, it's so interesting how he's like, you're guilty for this, like, you are a bad person, when this guy does, like, brutal things to people and, like, feels no guilt whatsoever.
Well,
when
he is fucked up in the
Sam
head.
broke the law a little bit and felt guilty about it still.
Like, Max Kitty
Oh my
is...
god, I talked
like,
about this earlier.
What?
I'm looking at my notes, and I wrote down that
I can't tell.
I think that they wanted us... I know, right? I think they wanted us to, like, see in the movie that despite, like, the vast differences between Sam and Max, like, Sam is an educated lawyer with a family, and Max is, like, a dumb prisoner, and, like, they're actually, like, both flawed human beings, but there actually still is quite amount of difference between them. Like, when Sam does do bad things, but he's also shown to feel guilty about the bad things he does, and the bad things that Max does is, like, way worse than the bad things Sam does, and he doesn't feel guilty about it. He's just like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna bite this woman's cheek off. That scene sent me. That was, like, I did not expect that of all things to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The way the movie sets up, I think they want us to view them as, like, two sides of the same coin, but the guilt, like, doesn't compare, I guess.
Yeah. I get that. I really like the Cape Fear theme. That's, like, one of my favorite themes of all time, just the Cape Fear theme. Of, like, the big brass. I love it. I love me a good big brass.
I know this is gonna be controversial, but I wrote down in my notes that I didn't like the soundtrack.
The soundtrack was giving... Martin Scorsese basically took the original soundtrack from, like, the 60s and just kind of barely rearranged it. So it's giving very 60s vibes and not, like, modern 90s.
And in a review, I read that was on purpose to add to the uneasy feeling the movie is supposed to give you because the music doesn't match the time period. And I can understand that from a making you feel emotions perspective. But outside of that, I just didn't like the music. I didn't like the way it sounded. It felt too loud compared to some of the audio. I don't know if that was just, like, my perception of it, though.
Definitely.
I didn't like, the audio mixing of the music. And, like, I felt like if it was quieter, it would have felt more suspenseful, I suppose. And I just didn't like the way it sounded. Yeah.
When I was listening to it in a theater, the sound, whenever the music would cut in, it would be a little too loud.
Yeah. I also didn't like some of the editing, like the weird editing with the colors and the x-rays.
The invertedness?
They did it multiple times in the movie, and I didn't like it. It didn't enhance the movie for me. It kind of took me out of the movie, because I was like, this doesn't look very good. I didn't like the editing.
And I think it was because whenever they did the inverted x-ray thing, I think it was to like show that whenever they would use it, the person seeing the x-ray would be always in like a dream state type thing. Like the first time they used it was when they were having sex, and like the wife gets up and like starts smoking and looking out the window, and the x-ray shows up, and it's like Max Cady sitting on like the wall, and she's kind of like in a dream state. And then the second time it was like when Sam was sleeping and he woke up, and it was like the x-ray, and then he saw Max Cady standing in front of him,
and
but then
the
he
third
like rubbed his
time
eyes and it
was
was
the
gone.
very end.
Yeah.
I get what it was trying to do, but it felt very poorly and cheaply done to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I get the intention, but it didn't work, in my opinion. And
it was very weird.
So the soundtrack, the editing, and the pacing, like, even the climax, which was my favorite part, almost felt like it dragged on too long at some point. Like, I started getting, like, a little bored again towards the end of the climax. Yeah. Until, like, the very end. Like, the part where he's, like, dying was, like, that was fun. But there's, like, a chunk between, like, the mock trial and when he dies. And I was like, okay, this has gone on a while now. Like, it's just the boat. Okay, let's go. Yeah, the pacing was made it a little long and boring. And the editing and the soundtrack. Those are my complaints.
There's, like...
Do you have any complaints? Were there things you didn't like?
Some out-of-place things, like... I feel like they weren't Martin Scorsese's, like, choice. I feel like somebody else influenced that into the movie, because this isn't an original of his, it's, like, a remake.
A remake, yeah.
There was also, so, like, the x-ray, that was, like, out of place. There was a camera, like, movement in the houseboat where they, like, the camera just, like, did a full 360 with the guy, with them, like, flipping around. That was also really out of place, and it was, like, in reference to a different director's style. And that was, like, the only time they did that, so it was really, really weird and out of place.
It's weird.
Definitely did not belong in the movie.
And then just the fact that they don't explain some little things, like how we got in the house and stuff, almost felt like a plot hole to me. Like, it was like, oh, we're just not going to explain it so we don't have to think of how we got in the house, I guess. And it's like, the private investigator is, like, very, very awake in a silent house. And he's, like, very intensely focused. It is a silent house. Everybody else is asleep. And he's just sitting there awake and focused. And you expect me to believe that there was not a single sound of this woman getting murdered that he heard? Like, I cannot believe she was, she got murdered completely silently, and he didn't pick up on it. And just him coming into the house. It just felt like almost a little plot hole-y, because they didn't explain it, but, like, they didn't have to. The movie worked without explaining it, but it felt like an excuse to not explain it. You know what I mean?
I feel like it was to show just how good and crazy...
Yeah.
How good and crazy
I get why they didn't do it,
was.
because it's like, it made the reveal, it made it more jump scary, I guess, to have the audience completely unaware he was in the house and this woman was murdered. I get why, from a storytelling perspective, but it felt a little bit like an excuse to not have to figure out the plot completely.
Yeah. I have a book.
A lot of the movie, I guess, is like that. What's the book?
I have a book. It's called Scorsese on Scorsese. It's basically a bunch of interviews of Scorsese talking about his movies, and they're just put together in this book by these two guys. And there's a chapter on Cape Fear. And Robert De Niro, this was his peak physical form. Like, his entire life, this was his peak physical form in this movie. He would wake up at, like, 4 a.m. every day, work out for, like, 4 hours, and then go shoot on set all day, and then, like, do the same thing until they were done shooting. This man was buff as fuck. It was scary.
That's crazy. His performance was so fun. I loved his, like, over-the-top accent and just, like, the way you could tell he was, like, charming in, like, a serial killer kind of way. And just, like, the way you could tell he was, like, faking his words, but, like, in a convincing way. I don't know. There were a lot of layers to his performance, and I loved it.
The scene where they were in the basement of the school in the drama stage, that scene
the theater,
was supposed to be different. He was supposed to chase he was supposed to chase her around, and then, like, she was supposed to, like, crawl through a window and then fall, but she would fall into someone else's arms and not his. And I
liked him, like, slowly grooming her in that scene. It was, like, It was really cool to watch.
That was really disturbing.
I will say, though, I think it is an odd casting choice, knowing you are going to have 47-year-old De Niro, touch sexually and kiss, what is supposed to be a child character. That's done a lot in movies. It's like you're showing a bad guy doing a bad thing. That's fine. But I don't think they should have casted an actual minor to play the role. Like, the girl was 17 at the time. And this was, like, a 50-year-old man kissing her. And I think they could have just cast a girl in her early 20s. I just think it's a little bit weird to cast a minor for the role, personally.
He also used tongue, which was extra weird, and I guess he was like, that makes it extra weird, but it's also extra weird just outside of the movie context to kiss a 17-year-old girl with tongue.
Outside of the movie context, they had a 50-year-old actor kiss a 17-year-old girl with tongue, and they cast older people to play teenagers all the time, and the girl looked kind of old for 17 also. I thought she was in her early 20s till I looked it up. And I just feel like it would have been very easy to cast a young adult instead of a minor. It's just kind of creepy outside of the movie perspective to do that from a movie-making standpoint.
This is what Scorsese says on that scene. He said, for me, this is still the most upsetting scene. We were trying to play on the idea of evil being attractive and dangerous, and Max Cady uses logic and emotion and psychology very much in the way Satan speaks in the Bible. And I know a couple women friends who said that they had similar experiences of being attracted at first to a dangerous character, and he destroys what little respect and trust Daniel had left of her father, which is, The other level is that the weakness in the family is almost begging for someone to come in and disrupt it further, which is what Max Cady does, probably intentionally.
Oh yeah, I think it was intentional too. I don't know how he could tell something was up with the family. I don't know how he knew that Sam had an affair with another woman to target her. I don't know how he knew a lot of things. But he did, and he was very smart in his slow takedown of the family. But yeah, other than De Niro's performance being incredible, I thought Danny's character in performance was very well done. Like, this actress, like, played a character that was, like, smart and dumb at the same time, I guess, in a very nuanced way. Like, it felt like she, like, kind of understood a lot of things better than, like, the adults in her life. But at the same time, she was very, very, like, naive and inexperienced and didn't know or understand a lot of things. And it was, like, simultaneous. Like, you could tell she was very, very wise, but very, very naive. The way teenagers are, I guess. It was a very good performance, and I usually don't like, usually my favorite characters and things I watch are, like, guys with a similar personality to me, because I like seeing characters like myself on screen. So usually, it's very rare that my favorite character in a piece of media is, like, a teenage girl. I usually like their characters, like, they're usually, like, somewhere close to my favorite, but they're never usually, like, my favorite in the entire piece. And she was, and I loved her character. And just, like, I understood all of the places she was coming from, and she actually did have a bit of character development with how they said that, like, she, like, wouldn't even kill, like, a bug in her room or something, but then she, like, lit the guy on fire and, like, tried to kill him.
Yeah.
Like, that was really cool to see. And I loved her having character development when, like, no other character did. And I understood a lot of places she was coming from. And it was a very fun teenager experience to see on screen. Did you notice a couple things in the movie felt kind of racist? I don't know. Was that, like, intentional because it was, like, a small town?
There was a Confederate flag. Like, in the movie.
Yeah.
In the parade scene.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I did notice that.
When, like, the court guy, I didn't notice that, but the like, judge guy, like, referred to someone in a weird way, and, like, there was a different line that was said that I don't remember, and I was just like, they're kind of talking about black people weirdly in this movie, but I don't know if that was, like, intentional to, like, show the characters in the town this way, or if it was, like, just what people acted like when they wrote scripts in the 90s. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it was the first one, but it felt kind of weird to watch still. It was a little uncomfortable.
So your favorite character was Danielle?
Danny. Yeah.
I think I also liked her the most. Yeah, she was also my favorite. What would you rate this movie?
Okay. Wait, I have one more thing to say.
Okay.
I have one more topic. And actually, you saying the quote from the director kind of reminded me of it.
Yeah.
Because, like, the entire movie is very blatantly having a religious theme in it. Like, the villain has, like, Bible things tattooed on him, and he references God a lot. He's, like, singing a God song as he dies. And there's, like, very obvious, like, shots that, like, when they're, like, driving to, like, Cape Fear, and it's like, are you going to heaven or hell? And the entire movie has, like, a religious theme, but I couldn't quite put my finger on what the theme was. Like, I suppose it ties into, like, the guilt theme, but, like, I don't know exactly what they were trying, and, like, there was, like, a Judgment Day theme, and I think the climax was supposed to represent Judgment Day, and, like, that's why there was a mock trial. I'm, like, working through this in real time. But I couldn't figure out exactly what it was trying to say. Do you know what it was trying to say?
In the book, it, like, kind of describes his tattoos. So, like, he would wake up at 3 in the morning, work out for 3 or 4 hours, and then go shoot. And then Scorsese says, I felt he should look like a lethal weapon. His body itself should be a weapon. We kept adding tattoos to this effect. The lightning bolts on his ribcage, which I thought were really good, were his idea, like Robert De Niro's. Yeah. In the beginning, the opening shot where we see Max Katie's cell with all the pictures of, like, Stalin. I think that's the first person we see. Stalin, in the beginning of the film, evokes the Man of Steel, which Max is trying to be. He also mentions Nietzsche, which is a German philosopher. I actually have one of his books on my shelf over there. Very good philosopher. You should definitely check him out. His philosophy is Nietzsche's Superman in its most negative form. He also identifies with Alexander the Great.
Oh yeah, he tries to conquer everything he comes across.
Who...
Even, like, the end of the movie, like, washing... Okay, finish.
He identifies with Alexander the Great, with the martyred saint of South America, who was impaled on spears because he sees himself as a victim. So there are these conflicting
That's what's
ideas
so interesting to me.
chasing around his physique, which made him believe that he's an instrument of God carrying out his revenge.
It's so interesting to me that he sees himself as a victim when, like, he was put in jail for 14 years for, like, doing horrific things to people. That's so intriguing to me. Like, he's very not right in his thought process. But, like, the end of the movie even showed, like, Sam washing the blood off his hands. Like, even washing blood off your hands is a very, like, Christian theme.
Yeah.
And, like, wiping away the guilt. Like, that's, like, a Christian theme. And I almost... Maybe it's just because of how I view, like, my religion personally. It almost didn't... This probably isn't true because the character's a little stupid. Like, he's probably is just, like, misguided and sees himself as, like, a wronged man who was, like, chosen by God to, like, right things. Like, that's how he sees himself. But if he was a bit smarter, I almost felt like he wasn't really just religious. He was just using the religion to justify his actions. Like, I didn't feel like he was, like, a religious man. It just felt like, ooh, I can use this Bible passage to justify my wrath, I guess. Like, it felt very weird for him to think that, like, God specifically chose him to, like, destroy his enemies. It felt like an excuse for his actions more than, like, a real religious conviction. That's something I noticed while watching it. That was one of the first notes I took.
The book doesn't discuss any of... And Scorsese says nothing about the religious stuff, so... Other than...
Oh my god.
He, like, speaks like Satan, and he's an instrument of God carrying out of his revenge.
Yeah. So there were religious themes on purpose in the movie.
I definitely think he is using God as an excuse. I see that.
Yeah. But, like, I couldn't figure out exactly what, like, he was trying to say with this theme in the movie. I just noticed it was there, and it was, like, I could put pieces of it together, but I can't put my finger on exactly what the point was. But that's okay. That happens, I guess.
That's okay.
I don't have to understand every film I watch completely.
You don't.
What would you rate this film out of 5? 5? Yeah.
What did I rate it on Letterboxd? I think I just gave it out of 5 because honestly, if I could watch this for the first time again, I totally fucking would. I would give it like a 4.2.
I understand that.
Maybe a 3.8. Somewhere in between there.
Trying to pick a rating for this movie has been very hard for me because there were a lot of things I really liked about it and a lot of things that I didn't like about it. And it was like, man, I would feel bad giving it this lower rating because I really liked these things. But then it's like, man, I can't give it that high of a rating because I didn't like these things. So I think I settled on, like, a 3.65. I got very specific. It was lower until the climax. And, like, I really loved the suspense, but there were so many things I also didn't like. 3.65. Final answer. Thank you guys for checking us out and listening to us talk. Thank you guys for checking us out and listening to us talk. For listening to us talk about this fear cape. And I hope you enjoyed it. And if you're still here, which a couple of you might be, I hope, maybe.
Nobody should be watching this.
You probably
Nobody.
want to subscribe to us.
Nobody.
Why are you still here? We told you an hour ago
Get
to go
out of
away.
here.
What's wrong with you?
An hour?
What's wrong with you? Get out of
Get out of here. Get out of here. What are you doing? Get out of here.
If you're still here, you probably like listening to us talk about movies. So, you might as well subscribe because we do this every week. Bye.
Bye. Get out of here.